Stand by for mode 1, Charlie 17. Mark, mode 1, Charlie.
And the flight dynamics officer says we look good on all sources, right on the trajectory. Crew will experience maximum G-forces of about 4 Gs at shutdown. Coming up on first stage shutdown. I think we saw them all from here.
Roger, Jack. The thrust is going, all 5 up there. Running good. Roger, 17, you're go.
All right. Greetings. In the name of the Most High, I'd like to greet all of you in the greeting words of peace. In the Arabic language, we say Assalamu alaikum. In the English, it simply means peace be unto you. And today we are talking about mental health and basically the mental health that Martin Luther King Jr. Suffered from, which was severe depression and suicidal thoughts at a young age. This show basically will help us to understand that if we're dealing with depression, if we're dealing with suicidal thoughts, or what they call today suicidal ideation, that we can, as an example that Martin Luther King laid down, that we can overcome these mental ailments. And so today we are honored to have with us a panel of Black mental health professionals who will help us to talk a little more about this subject. So I will introduce them now. I will bring on first Sister Ashley Wormley, and I will let them introduce themselves once we bring them all on. All right. And we have Mr. Rodney Hunter, and we have Sister Deasia Thomas. All right. Greetings all to you. And so, Sister Ashley, we will first start with you. If you could introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background. And basically, this is your day. As we spoke a little bit off camera, I think you're starting your own business. It's your birthday. And so tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, hello, everybody. Like you said, my name is Ashley. I am the owner of Loving South Counseling Services. Today is actually our launching day. We are going to be starting to accept clients come April 1st. And we are a mental health therapy service that is geared towards the uplifting and the progress of Black men and women in our community here in the Dayton, Ohio area. I specialize in treating mood disorders as well as trauma and things like that, as well as providing what we call cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as mindfulness therapy.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Sister. And Mr. Hunter, if you would like to go next.
Good afternoon, sir, and thank you for having me. And again, my name is Rodney Hunter. I'm the owner of New Beginnings Therapeutic Services, which is kind of centralized in the Dayton area. My practice began 2014. A little bit about myself. 1994, I began in the helping profession. I was a guardian ad litem, and I worked in the Montgomery County Juvenile Court sector for approximately 13 years, working with at-risk youth. I worked in a program called a drug court, and it was a juvenile drug court. And what led me to going independent was when I started working with at-risk youth in our community who had substance abuse issues and or depression, anxiety. A while ago, we would send our kids to, the agencies in Montgomery County. But the parents were coming back to me, as well as some of my probationers, indicating that the counselors that they were assigned to did not understand them for various reasons, maybe cultural. And so I made it a point to go out on my own and start my own practice. I already had all the degrees and everything. So I said, well, after about, like I said, 13 years, I decided to just go ahead and market myself in our community. And since then,
Excellent.
majority of my clientele are, well, let me back up. I work with individuals with substance abuse issues, mental health issues. I do marriage counseling, couples counseling, behavior modification. So it's an array of different specialties that I do have, and I am, as far as a African American male in this field, we're kind of the minority, and so that kind of keeps my practice full, because the parents out there are seeking an individual who can understand the dynamics in which these children come from. So I wish there were more of us, but and I try to take on as many as I possibly can to help, the individuals in our community. I contract myself out to various other organizations. I've matter of fact, a few of them, and kind of help them start up their own mental health programs. So I'm quite busy in our community, and I'm spiritually driven. I know my purpose, and that is to bring individuals closer to our God, as well as trying to heal some of the wounds that were inflicted amongst them, throughout their life's journey. So I'm proud to be on this panel, and I thank you. This is well needed.
Thank you. Yes, and we'll get right on into some of the issues that you have really brought up and revealed. But we're going to go to Sister Deasia. And if you could tell us a little bit about yourself. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Deasia Thompson. I'm a licensed independent social worker supervisor, and I'm the owner of Rise Counseling Group here in Dayton, Ohio. And we specialize in alleviating anxiety and depression in African American women and teen girls. And we also focus on other women of color as well. And we really look at how race and gender and all the different dynamics and facets that go along with being Black, being a woman, intersect in our lives, and how it impacts depression and anxiety. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. All right. And so we want to go ahead and get right on into our discussion today. And I'll just read just a little bit of an article, and it talks about Dr. King and his struggle with anxiety, severe anxiety and depression. It says that every year around Martin Luther King Day, Americans celebrate King's dream of racial equality. Each year, some wonder about those aspects of his life, of his life's work, that have remained unfulfilled. Racial equality was only the first of King's three major social goals. The other two, which he focused in the final years of his life, were aimed at poverty and war. And of course, we can all relate to those issues taking place today. King didn't just want desegregation. He wanted the government to be more involved economically to help the poor and the oppressed. U.S. military intervention in other countries like Vietnam. The deeper attitude behind King's philosophy was the view that we should be creatively maladjusted. King was explicit in a sermon on this topic that everybody passionately seeks to be well adjusted, he said. But there are some things in our world to which men of goodwill must be maladjusted. Human salvation lies in the hands of the creatively maladjusted. So basically, you know, King, if people research, will find out that he was very intelligent. He was a young man who you could say skipped grades because of his intelligence. But what many don't know is that in King's teen years, he was severely depressed and he had suicidal thoughts that, of course, we saw that he overcame at least the suicidal thoughts, but he and his struggle in the civil rights movement was dealing still with those bouts of depression. So if we could, can we break down you know, what is depression? And we can start with you if you would like, Sister Deasia. Mm-hmm. Oh,
Thank you. So when we think about depression, depression is a mood disorder of sorts, and so we're looking at low mood, low energy. Sometimes people can have suicidal thoughts that accompany that, and I like to think of depression on a continuum because not everybody's depression is going to present the same, but a lot of times you will have folks will withdraw from things that they normally would enjoy doing. You can have low sex drive. You can have, like I said, the like poor thoughts about self. So really kind of like self-blame, low self-esteem, things of that nature. It can change your appetite where you are eating more or not eating enough. It can change your interactions with other people. Some folks become really irritable and, their mood can be off-putting to others. And a lot of it, we think of these outward symptoms, but it's also like physically in our body. You don't have energy to do things. You don't, feel good in your body, which would probably make you irritable and not want to deal with other folks or deal with things that are going on in your daily life. It can disrupt your sleep. It can impact your concentration. So not being able to complete tasks, not being able to get a full 8 hours of sleep. And it can, and like I said, it does look different for everyone. But those are just some of the basic symptoms that we see when we're talking about depression. And when we're looking at it from a diagnosable standpoint, we're looking at, what is the frequency that this is happening for you? What is the intensity and what's the duration of like these symptoms? How present is this in your life? How often is it happening to you? So, people can go in and out of depressive episodes. And so how often is this happening to you? Looking at kind of the cycle of that. And so to diagnose when we're looking at meeting a set of criteria, we're looking at, 6 months or more of you really dealing with this. And so when we see that it's prolonged and you're saying that these things are really impacting how you function in your daily life, then we are looking at, a diagnosis of depression. And it just looks different for everyone. But yeah.
All right. And we're going to ask you real quick to maybe sign off and sign back on. Maybe a program came on and it has your video a little blurry, and that sometimes happens when the program kicks on. And yeah. And so we'll go to Dr. Hunter. Dr. Hunter, if you can talk a little bit about, and Sister Deasia talked about the depression, and if you can talk a little bit about the suicidal thoughts, particularly the rising suicides that are taking place in the Black community, particularly among young Black boys. I mean, we're going through a pandemic right now, but many people may not know that we are suffering from an epidemic of suicide within the Black community where our young people are literally giving up hope. Can you talk a little bit about that?
One of the things that I've noticed and that is alarming, as well as something that's not being addressed in our community, is the fact that our coping mechanisms have failed us. When a child is experiencing some form of negative experience, okay, and usually when we have a negative experience and we are to use our coping skills to deal with that particular experience, we are not teaching our kids resilience as we did in the past. I think that the coping skills are not being taught, not being addressed. And I'll give you a good point. I come from a single family home. Mother only raised myself and my brother. And so I did not grow up in a home with a father. So things that happened in my brother and myself, our lives, whereas we, hit our head, so to speak, against the wall, and we were involved in sports. We were involved in other activities outside the home. We had neighborhoods that had interest in us and watched out for us. A lot of these things have gone away. And
Right.
when I say things like sports, I'm not actually really talking just about a ball being thrown out on the court or out on the field. I'm talking about individual coaches out there, whereas they take interest in us, and when something is not done correctly, we have these strong Black male figures in our community, these mentors, to show us the way,
Right.
and help us with the word resilience. Times have changed. Now, kid has to figure it out on their own. We don't have the parks, the gyms, the recreation centers, the mentors, the neighborhoods, the neighbor. We don't. These things have gone away. Kids are now not even being raised by their own parents because the single parent is at work, does not have time to teach a child about resilience when they fall, how to get back up. So it's becoming alarming, and I don't know the fix just right now. So if a child falls and does not have the help of an adult, then they have to figure out this problem on their own. And they don't develop the coping skill that can get them through this. So they will try things like drugs. They will find any means necessary how to get rid of the pain.
Right.
Suicide is a quick act. Suicide, the word in our community now, is unfortunately becoming attractive. It's a quick fix, and it's a means of, I don't want to do this anymore, instead of fighting through it. And when I speak to either adults or children about this topic, there's a short poem that I will often, kind of within the next few several sessions, I would say it's just called "Be Strong." It's a segment of a poem, and with that, I do want to say this. It's "Be strong. We are not here to play dream or drift. We have hard work to do and loads to lift. Shun not to struggle, for it is God's gift. Be strong. Shun not to struggle, for it is God's gift." The struggles that our kids are facing, they don't realize that it is a gift. That's what makes us into strong Black men and Black women. They don't understand that. These struggles, if they understood that these struggles are merely gifts, are merely things that will make us into powerful people, then they may choose another option.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That's powerful. I know that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that struggle is a part of life. Struggle is ordained. And when we look at any type of like wildlife animal, that documentaries. There's definitely struggle. There's struggle to eat, there's struggle to survive. But in our case, as you're saying, you know, there's also the struggle to overcome. There's the struggle to be, to create, to bring things out of our subconscious into reality. Sister Ashley, if you would like to, let me get her back in. I think she signed back on. All right. If you would like to talk a little bit about both of these topics, both depression and suicide, particularly in today's time where we're where we're dealing with so many different issues. We're dealing with the pandemic, we're dealing with shelter in place, we're dealing with unemployment, and then on top of that, as we just spoke about, what Martin Luther King was also dealing with, which you see trending with civil war and the possibility of a global outbreak of war. Can you talk a little bit about those two subjects?
Yes, definitely. So as Dee touched on, depression itself can look differently in multiple people. A lot of times what we are seeing now, especially in the times that we're living in with not only the pandemic, but with systematic racism, we are seeing a lot of individuals who are high functional depression or have high functioning depression, which means that they're able to go through their daily lives or go throughout their daily activities, however, still feel sad or depressed or unloved or all of these different emotions that Deisha had talked about on the inside, but they're still able to keep moving and keep going. And I think that, you know, with where we are in this time frame of, again, the pandemic, systematic racism, the Black community itself is coming to realize that, you know, our situations are not the same as everybody else. We are treated differently. We are looked at differently. So ultimately, we feel differently. And I think we are starting to come to terms with the fact that we do have what we call mental health. We're coming to terms with we're not okay with things that are going on in our communities and within our homes and within our system, that we're starting to seek out more help. We're starting to seek out more professional help because we realize that this is not normal for us. We are being treated differently, and we're either angry, we're sad, we're frustrated, and we just need to have that unbiased listening ear. So I think more people are coming to terms with therapy. They're coming to terms with needing this additional help, and they're seeking out people who look like them. So they're coming to more African American therapists. They're coming to people who not only have that training, but can relate to them on a deeper level, because they understand that we understand what they're going through. They understand that we're also experiencing these things, and while we might not have the answers, we can relate to them. We can help them and lead them and guide them to hopefully a better place.
Right. Excellent. And so let's go ahead and we're just going to break this up, and we're just going to have a conversation between all of us. And so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that stigma, right? If anybody would like to lead off, and anybody can jump on in, you know, this stigma, this mental health stigma has been in our community for quite some time. And it's just now beginning to erode with individuals like Charlemagne the God, I think Pete Thompson, I forget her first, Taraji, Pete Thompson, and others who are exposing, you know, that it's all right, you know, to acknowledge that you have a mental health issue, and it's all right now to begin to seek mental health counseling. Would anybody like to talk on that erosion of mental health in our community?
Well, if you don't mind, the first thing that I've noticed, and this is just recently, and again, you know, I'm doing all forms of types of counseling, but I noticed in my early practice that I really couldn't get the African American male to buy into counseling. Now, the female, I would see them as a client often, and different other races and genders. But the last to show at my office is usually the African American man. I am beginning to slowly see a change, but it's still very problematic. And you know, the African American male, in our culture is the head of the snake. I'm not chauvinistic or anything like that, but
Right.
if we are to help our young people, help our young boys, and get them to the point where it's okay to purge it out. It's okay to discuss it. I think we can begin to see a shift and make a difference in our community. But until the man, the African American man, understands that it's okay, depression is real, suicide is alarming in our community. Until
Mhm.
we can get this individual at the table, it may be, it could be a slow process.
Mhm.
It all starts at
Absolutely.
home, and I truly believe in mentorship. So we have a lot of work to do. I
Right.
think we know the recipe. I think we know how to fix it, but we need all of us to buy in. And when I say all of us, we all have to buy in and understand that this is we are a family and we have to uplift each and every one of us. So,
Right. And
but
anybody,
I am
like I
beginning
say,
to
just
transition.
jump right on in. Um, uh, don't hold back. Um, one of the things, that when we look at um, depression and anxiety and all these other mental illnesses, right, is, the elephant in the room, which is being under this system of white supremacy, being under the system of institutional racism, being under the system of systemic racism. And these institutions, this ideology, this thought that white is superior and black is inferior, uh, has kept a lot of us back from, realizing our full potential. And then that frustration of not being able to bring out what God, the gift, as you were saying, Dr. Hunter, the gift that God has put in us has caused this frustration and it's caused this depression. Um, to the point, if you will, Sister DeAsia, uh, even in women, we see the system and its effect on infant and maternal mortality, even. Can you talk a little bit about infant and maternal mortality? Because they're saying that this cuts across economic lines. It doesn't matter how wealthy a Black woman is, because she lives in this toxic system. This is setting her up for complications with maternity. If you could talk to that.
Sure. So kind of back to looking at like how depression is stigmatized and seeking services and all of that. So yes, for quite some time, I think it is definitely changing now that people of color, Black people, are definitely seeking services. But we have to definitely think about how our kids are socialized and how we talk to our kids about what is masculine,
Mm.
specifically for our men, so that if they get to a point where they feel like they do need to reach out, they feel comfortable reaching out because we've already been having those conversations around it's okay to share your feelings. It's okay to know and understand how you feel and to try to change that for the better. Then, just touching on the race part of it, where you're talking about the systemic and the institutional racism, and that absolutely does cut across all lines, and there's an impact. So like I said, we focus on how race and gender impact depression for the women in my practice that we see. And so just by sheer nature of being Black, right, there's already that hanging over our heads, and then for the women that I see, you have that hanging over their heads. And so women are facing an uphill battle a lot of times at work, at home, and in their various environments to be seen and be heard and be understood. and also as we challenge and try to change roles for ourselves and make them fit, who it is that we want to be. And that is a struggle, and that can impact how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about others, and how we feel about the world. And then, it can carry over also into how, our parenting, as well as mothering and just procreation in general. And so we know that because race is kind of an ever impending thing for us that can impact us on any given level, we're, as Black people, we're walking around with heightened sense of anxiety in a lot of cases anyway, and so that does impact us when it comes time to have children, because we already have, kind of this higher sense of anxiety. We're worried about whether the doctor is going to listen to us. We're worried about whether or not we're going to be judged if we're married, or, whatever the case is. We're worried about those things. And so when it comes to the medical system, even in going back with the stigmatized piece of it, and just the medical system in general, we have a history of distrust with the medical system. And so, therapists will fall into that. And I think as we have more Black therapists coming into the field, and we have more folks that are opening practices and more folks that are doing this work in the community, I am hoping to see a shift in that. And I have seen a shift in that, but I'm hoping to see, a more positive shift in that. But, the reality is we are still a part of a system that has been harmful, towards people of color and Black, marginalized people, Black people in general. And so, for us on the inside of that, we are also working against that system as well to make sure that we can advocate for our clients as well. So, it's a lot. It's a lot that, we're up against when we're talking about depression. And it's not just as simple as a person is depressed and all that. That person is depressed, but then if they have to try to deal with the insurance companies, and they're trying to find a provider that looks like them, which may be limited. So there are a number of things that they're, facing when it comes to addressing mental health, and the stigma part of that is, still a reality. And so it becomes difficult. And, but I am hoping to see that shift, and hoping that we can make some headway in being able to have accessible services, and really culturally appropriate and culturally aware services for Black people. But that is, as you talked about, systemic and institutional. That's going to also require a shift with our educational programs. That's going to require a shift in the insurance and managed care systems and all of that. So, it's a work in progress, but I'm hopeful that it can change.
Absolutely. And so I want to ask
may
everyone.
I chime in real quick?
Yeah, jump right on in. Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the things, now let me kind of set this up as a title for myself. I am a psychotherapist. Okay. And we have our psychologists and psychiatrists, but I'm a psychotherapist, and my main focus is focusing on the cognitive. Okay. Strengthening the cognitive. My last resort of when I have a client is to pick up my pen and write a prescription. That's not what I do. So when it comes to our young people, okay, this has been happening for years. If you have ADHD, what first line of defense? They want to pick up, write a prescription. Hey, Adderall's been around for decades. Okay, but if we can strengthen our mind, and again, I'm talking about parenting skills as well. See, I teach how thoughts become emotions, turn into emotions and feelings. So if we can change our thoughts, we can change our consequence. Mm-hmm. So in other words, if I have a belief about an event that occurred, and we're still talking about depression, an event occurs, but it's my interpretation of the event that's going to give me the consequence. Something happens negative. I believe that it's negative. The consequence leads to depression and or anxiety. Same event if it happens, but if I change the way I think and my thoughts, I have a better outcome of it being positive. One of the funny stories that I will often tell during counseling is when, I just kind of want to give a quick example. When we're children and we are going to Kings Island or for the first time, and once again, we're talking about anxieties. So the first thing when you're about to get on that roller coaster, you have all these anxieties and all these thoughts of, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm going to just probably purge and everything else. But when you go through that maze and your anxiety is getting worse and worse. But once you get on that roller coaster and then you get off that roller coaster, one of the first things that a child will say is, hey, that wasn't that bad. Let's get back on. So I say this example is because we always either have a fear of something, anxiety, right, or we have a thought of something in the past that creates depression. But anxiety or depression begins with a thought.
Right.
If we can change the thought, and it's not just something that we just overnight can do, but if we practice preparation and we can have the ability to change our thoughts, we have the ability to strengthen our minds. I think the outcome will not be to where it is today. And that's what I'm working with a lot of children and adolescents in our community. This is a very powerful tool. We're not using it to its full capacity. And I think that's one of the things that I would, if I had the ability to put it in every household, strengthen this, I think we can beat this. Now, I'm not totally against medication, and believe me, I understand the medication works, but there's more to just providing a child or an individual or an adult just medication and think that's the fix for depression. It's just the way how we use our thoughts can really control and give us a better outcome. And in fact, let me add this, then that person may not pick up that weapon and end their life. But just
yes, absolutely.
I just want to read something real quick. Mm-hmm. Facilitate the appropriate expression of anger or other feelings which are contributing to self-destructive impulses. Facilitate the appropriate expression. So we have to teach our child who is going through problems to find an appropriate way to express or appropriate way to deal. And again, I do think we'll have better outcomes.
Absolutely. So Sister Ashley, one of the things that, and you brought up so many good points, Dr. Hunter. One of the things that we're just dealing with, being conditioned, if you will, we're as a people, we have been in this system for so long, and conditioning, as you all know, like Pavlov's dog, right? You have reward and you have punishment. And so we have, as a people, we have been to a long time conditioned as a people. Sister Ashley, can you talk about learned helplessness? You know what I'm saying? Because I think that as a people, we have to begin, and each of you are an example of stepping out and doing something for self. And I think that we have to break free as a people from being dependent on this system, which puts us in the position of having these mental illnesses. Sister Ashley, can you talk about that learned helplessness or even Stockholm syndrome?
Yes. So if you really just think about it, we as a Black people and people of minorities or people of color in general have been taught to believe that we are inferior. So we have had this learned helplessness for hundreds of years, which have been passed down upon us from, other generations before us. And even now, if you think, our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents have been taught this. So they kind of, again, teach those values into us. So we have to be careful of who we talk to. We have to be careful of how we speak. We have to take all of these different precautions when we're out in public or when we're out in other situations, so that way we don't make white supremacy, we don't make white people in general feel as if we have more control or feel as if we are better than them. And that learned helplessness sticks with us. As we get older, we start to question ourselves. We start to question our values, which can ultimately lead to some of this depression. It can lead to some of our suicidal thoughts, because we're wondering, what is wrong with us? Why am I seen as being less than or not as equal to somebody else who might not look like me? I have the same grades as them. I have the same experiences as them, but I'm being treated differently just because of the color of my skin. So that learned helplessness starts from a very young age and kind of just grows and builds upon each other as we get older. And again, it's something that we were taught from a very young age, because our ancestors are, those above us have taught us that, because that's all they ever knew.
Right. And anyone, if you would like to jump in and comment on that, because once again, this learned helplessness, when we see ourselves as a united people, right? For instance, when we separate ourselves as a people, they say that we have an economy that would rival we would be basically the 9th richest nation on the planet Earth, and when you think of the 9 nations, we would be the 9th richest. And when you think of nations that are number 1 to number 20, right? They have their own hospitals, right? They have their own grocery stores. They have their own educational system. And we're talking about us as a people being the 9th richest nation on the planet Earth. However, when we look at our condition, our condition as a people, it bears witness that we are all suffering from a mental illness. Do any of you know about the Willie Lynch, and can any of you talk about that Willie Lynch, or at least that mindset of self-hatred? And once again, as Sister Ashley was talking about that inferiority complex and how we can overcome that way of thinking. And I'll throw in, of course, myself being in the Nation of Islam, being a follower of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and that is gaining the knowledge of self is so crucial to our mental health, because our children are not taught a firm foundation to build on. We're taught that our history begins with slavery. So can anyone talk about that mentality?
I think we must break this cycle of taking on the victim role, and or fostering helplessness and hopelessness. I think we must break this cycle. Again, when I was growing up, raised in west side of Dayton, and single family home, all the odds were stacked up against my brother and I. But my mother instilled this word called self-esteem, and instilled in us the ability to, hey, if you want something, you go after it, you get it. And of course there are going to be obstacles. Obstacles are there for us to strengthen us. But we cannot play the victim role. We cannot continue to give ourselves excuses on why we are not succeeding. We cannot continue to say, I didn't get this job because I'm Black. No, we didn't get that job because we weren't prepared. So when you don't get the job, you go back to the drawing board, self-development, strengthen yourself, and then you go back into that room and you demand for that particular job. I live by these words. This is what has made me into the person I am today, not playing the victim. And I think this is this is 2021. Racism does exist, but we cannot use it as a tool. We cannot use it as an excuse. We must strengthen our minds, and put down the drugs and stop glorifying the hardcore rap music. That's we've been doing it for the last, I don't know how many, 25, 30 years. And that's not getting us anywhere.
Right.
Instead of picking up that rap music and those ear pods, just pick up a book daily. You listen to rap daily, read daily.
Right. Now, see, I definitely,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I definitely understand what you're saying. So my question is how important is it for community, to be involved, a united community to be involved in this process? Because while I definitely understand what you're saying about, not getting that job and building up your resume and becoming more proficient or professional, however, we do also understand that there is that institutional wall, if you will, the gatekeepers that keep us out. And this, once again, is what causes a lot of the frustration within our community. So my question is how important is it for us as a people to begin to understand the concept of community, common unity? We see this common unity among Chinese Americans, where they have built their own, if you will, insulated areas, which you would call Chinatown. We see it among the Italians in Little Italy. We see this among all people. However, when we talk about Black people, we don't see the same type of pulling our resources, as the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, and doing something for self. Can anyone talk about how important it is for us to begin to see each other as at least brothers and sisters in this struggle to move forward as a people?
I would definitely like to speak on that. It's extremely important for us as not only minorities, but as Black people to stick together and to help one another, because we can't progress if we are not doing these things. Like you mentioned, the Chinese, the Italians, they work as a unit together to build their communities. And as we have seen through slavery, that we have been taught that we're fighting against our other brothers and sisters. However, if we change our thought process, if we change how we looked at each other, instead of saying that's my competition, instead of, that's my brother, let me help uplift my brother so he can in turn help uplift me when my time comes, then we can get out of this crab in a barrel mentality. We can build our communities. We can get back to where we are owning our own Black Wall Street. We are having our own communities. We are striving and not needing to go into these other communities and spend our money or even rely on them to take care of us, because we can take care of us if we start to see us as our brothers, as our sisters, and as somebody who can help, uplift not only me, but I can uplift them.
Absolutely. And I like especially what you say, Dr. Hunter, about mind over matter, right? But once again, if I can ask you, Sister Deasia, how important is it for our children to have a strong self-awareness, to have a strong historical background? Because once again, our history as a people didn't begin in slavery, and a lot of what we're taught, particularly today in the some would say the educational fool system, right, is that they never talk about these great accomplishments, and they never give attribution to the Black man and woman for the things that we have not only brought to America in slavery, but even during our enslavement, some of our inventions are not even really identified. And now they have, I think they did a movie about some Black women who helped the white man get to the moon. And so we never, what was that, hidden something, all of it is hidden. All of it is hidden. I think Tariq Nasheed does a documentary called Hidden Colors. But if you could talk to that and how important it is for our children to learn the knowledge of self.
Sure. And so, when we're talking about having a good sense of self and good self-esteem, That really, it really does start at home with your parents and really them pouring into you. Obviously, our school systems have been, extremely whitewashed from a historical perspective. And that's, I think that that is by design in some ways. I also think that, the US in general has a reckoning to come to terms with regards to, reparation and really making, in a sense, whole what they have done to Black people and Native people and Hispanic people. And I'm sorry, is my mic on?
No, you go ahead. We have a
Okay.
caller after you get done.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought my sound went out. And so yeah, we definitely have. I think the U.S. has some atoning to do for what has happened to our people in general. But on our end, what we can be doing at home is making sure that we are, number one, showing our children that we love them, showing our children that we care about how they feel, show our children that we are listening to them and they are heard and they are cared for in a way that they know that, as they're developing, this sense of self develops in a healthy manner. And so when we talk about anxiety and depression and other mood disorders and mental health issues and struggles that people go through, a lot of what we can attribute that to is how they were shaped in their home life, some of these traumatic experiences that they have. And so it is really important for us to pour into our children in a positive manner so that they do develop a healthy sense of self, and they feel like they are a whole person and that they can, even up against these obstacles like institutional racism, or in the example of going to get a job or whatever is going on in their life, they feel like, okay, this is an obstacle, but I am able to overcome this obstacle. I am able to manage and deal with the, maybe the pain that comes along with that in a healthy way. And so, those, we talk about coping skills and we talk about learning different ways to do this. And so coping skills are very, very important. But in addition to those coping skills, that core sense of self really does need to be poured into. And, a lot of that is shaped by our parents. And if it's not, directly our mother or father or however our family situations look, our caregivers, right? So that can include the teachers, that should include, community leaders, that should include, if you're going to church or whomever is really involved in that day-to-day part of your child's life. So, yeah.
Very well said, Ms. Thompson. And I just kind of want to piggyback off what you just said. We also have to model the role as well. Some of us in the Black community, yes, we are to talk to our children about coping skills and how to handle certain situations as well. But when our backs are turned, we must understand that they are listening to us. They are modeling after us, and we can't say one thing and do another. Okay. When one of the, like, for instance, I love talking to my daughter. She at times educates me. We will have this funny discussion about she's learned about manifestation and how you speak things into existence. So I'm kind of listening to her, and she's watching me, and at times we during the day are having therapy sessions. And the reason why I'm saying this is because even when my back is turned, I know she's watching me and learning from me. But one thing she cannot do is learn from me when I'm absent. And so that male again, we have to do a better job in staying present in our children's lives, staying present in the home. We have to do a better job with that. Again, it's very important to talk about it. We also have to model it, but be present as well. In the Black community, when we're talking about community all coming together is always, it's often a missing component sometimes, that Black male. And so again, I think if we just need to do a better job in overcoming our problems, you know, and I don't understand why it's so problematic in the Black community that the Black male is not in the home. I don't know. It's been that way since I've known my father, etc. I don't know why is that. I don't know if it's I can't handle the situation. I don't know if it's I don't know. I'm sure there's various problems, but in those other communities, in those Chinese, in Japan and China, and I, you know, again, I don't study those cultures like that as far as, you know, that man in the home. But those kids are learning something, whereas our kids are not. Those individuals have a strong community and keep it together. Ours not. I don't
Well,
want
we
to
got
play.
a caller.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yep, we got a caller from 937. Brother Michael, can you go right ahead?
All right. What's going on, Steve?
All right.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yeah, Steve, sorry. I don't know if you remember me, but I came to Zoom a few times right there at Central State and talked with you a few times.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you remember me, though. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
y'all talking about depression. Yeah, that's a good subject, but it's a good subject for a lot of people, but I just want to say something like, because I'm going to keep it real. I deal with depression. I mean, a lot of people deal with depression. There might be something going on in their life, you know what I mean? And me personally, I'm just gonna keep it real. I've been a Muslim since 2010, right? And I wasn't born Muslim, and none of my family, most of my family, nobody's in the Nation of Islam or nothing. So, but the reason when I became Muslim in 2010, I had went to prison. But this is my second number. I went to prison in 2010. I got out in 2015. And once I picked up that Quran in 2010, I never looked back. I read it and understood it. And I know some people look at me, well, you're a Muslim. Why do you smoke cigarettes? Or why do you smoke weed? You know, for one, you have to understand that just because we're in America, this is not heaven. A lot of people live in undeveloped countries, so they don't have no choice but to turn to drugs, turn to violence.
What, Brother Michael?
Countries. You understand it?
Yeah. What might be your question for our panel?
Somebody got a question?
Yes, sir. Do you have a question for the panel?
Oh yeah. Now I was saying like yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like yeah, I deal with a lot of depression because I went to prison a couple of times, and what I'm saying is, I mean, people look at me like I'm not a Muslim because I might smoke cigarettes or smoke weed. What I'm saying is like what can I turn who can I turn to, or what can I turn to if nothing else is helping? I'm a Muslim. A lot of Black America is still less than 50% people are not Muslim. So
right,
just because I turned to alcohol, that's what I'm saying is, so what other answer do y'all have? If anyone can answer this for me. What cigarettes help self-stress? I've been smoking cigarettes since a young age. Some people say it's a stress reliever. Marijuana helps out a lot of medical stuff. Y'all put this stuff on here for us to have for as far as medicine and enjoy. A lot of these drugs, like illegal drugs, help people, but people don't want to believe it. People
all right, Brother Michael.
They don't want to believe that. So like, what can I turn to?
Yes, sir.
I'm just saying, like, even as a young kid, as a young teen, my dad died when I was 10 years old, right?
All right, we're gonna take your answer, Brother Michael. Hold on. So, all right, Ben. If you all would like to address that.
Yeah, so I was going to say, just in terms of, so utilizing substances to cope is, it's a heavily utilized coping skill. We consider it maladaptive because we know that there are negative side effects to prolonged use of drugs and alcohol and other substances. So while I make no judgment about folks that utilize substances, what I would recommend is that you find an alternative such as therapy, because therapy can definitely help. And it's not about, for me, it's not about, let me just tell you to stop this cold turkey and give you nothing else on the flip side of that. So
Right.
really, for one, understanding why you did turn to those substances is going to be really important. I also think that it is important to replace those because those are habit forming behaviors. The cigarettes are addictive, like the nicotine is addictive. Marijuana can be, and maybe not marijuana in and of itself, but the relief that you get from marijuana and other substances can be addictive. The relief that you get, or the suppression of negative emotions that you get from utilizing alcohol and things of that nature, can be addictive. There's also the physiological components to it. So your body does become used to it. You do have withdrawal symptoms, which are painful, and also, trigger people to reuse and to get back into using when they want to stop. However, I am a firm believer that therapy works. I am also a firm believer that, in trying therapy, you want to find a therapist that fits you and what you need, that are going to be able to work with you, on your terms. And that's really important. So, but, a therapist would probably say, let's try some of these other alternatives to utilizing the substances. That might look like exercise. That may look like figuring out some other hobby. So maybe cooking. That may be, I don't know, when you get maybe if you get the urge to drink, finding some other healthy alternative that you can do in those times. We'd also suggest other coping skills such as journaling, such as writing music, such as, there's a host of different things that you can
Right.
do. But, it's really about, figuring out and becoming aware of what triggers you to the point where you want to use substances. So if you're saying the cigarettes are a stress reliever, what's causing you stress in your life on a daily basis that you feel like you need the cigarette to suppress that stressful feeling, right? So we have to, actually address these things head on. Coping skills are, a good place to kind of start and to use, but we can't cope to the point where we're just using a Band-Aid. So we really do have to address these things. You really do have to learn how to work through some of these painful things. And that's what therapy is there for. And so it is going to be really important that if you decide to go into therapy, know that it's not just going to be this fun, fancy experience. It can be painful and it can be hard to do, but know that your therapist is there for you and you're not alone in that, because a lot of times people feel alone in whatever it is that they're going to, that may even trigger them to utilize substances. But in your therapist, you have somebody that is on that journey of healing with you, and you are the expert on your life. And so it's going to be on you to do that work. The therapist can't do it for you. They can help you, they can guide you, they can kind of get you to a place where you're, maybe they're helping you uncover some things, but you have to do that work. And that's not always fun. So, in the short term, yes, substances do, they serve a purpose. I don't, like I said, I don't make any judgments about that. I'm just real with, they do serve a purpose for people. But if you get to a point where that is not what you want to use anymore, and you are really ready to feel like you have more control over your life and over yourself, your sense of self, and ready to grow in that way, I do think that therapy is an excellent way to do that. So
Yeah.
I hope
Yes,
that
I'd like to
answers his
piggyback off of
question.
you if I
Yeah.
could.
Go right ahead, sister.
While again, therapy will be definitely extremely helpful with him identifying again those underlying triggers that lead to him to drinking or smoking or things like that. But understanding that you're not always going to connect with the first therapist you come in contact with. It's okay to stop therapy with one person and try again with somebody else. Because like Deisha mentioned, you have to make sure that that therapist that you're talking to, that you're giving, your deep, darkest secrets to, and trying to learn and cope with, that they are able to connect with you and understand you for who you are. And sometimes it takes stopping therapy and trying somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think, as we begin to move into our final segment of this program, let's go into a little bit of how to go about, finding a mental health therapist, someone who can, address our particular ill or ailment. So starting with you, Sister Deasia, what are some of the first steps that we can take to finding mental health therapists?
Sure. So a really easy way to kind of get a list of therapists would be to go through your insurance provider. So if you have insurance, whether it's Medicaid or a commercial insurance plan such as Anthem or Aetna or Cigna or whoever, typically you can go. Typically, they all have like a find a provider type search filter that you can use, and you can search for mental health or behavioral health providers, and it'll provide, they'll provide you with the list. You can either do that online, or you can give them a call. And in giving them a call, sometimes you can also say, hey, I'd like to, work with an African American therapist, and they can give you those, because we do give, we do give those demographics when we are, getting paneled with the different insurance companies. So they have those demographics. They don't always publish that on the websites. However, they do have that information. So, and sometimes if you need additional assistance, they will go as far as reaching out to therapists or other providers for you to kind of gauge availability and, setting up an appointment and all of that. So your insurance company would be a really good place to start. Another place that has become fairly popular is Therapy for Black Girls. That is, it's actually an international website now, because there's a list of over 2,000 therapists in the United States and Canada that serve Black people, that provide care for Black girls and women. And now on that, even though it says Therapy for Black Girls, most of the providers also see men and boys and things of that nature. It was started it was started after Black Girls Rock, and Joy Bradford saw a need. And we don't have a directory. We don't have this thing where Black girls can go and find a therapist that looks like them, which is really a need in our community. So you have Therapy for Black Girls. You also have Psychology Today, which is a international therapist directory as well. And it's, so you can find just about anybody on there, and, they'll discuss like different types of therapy that they do. And you can search for therapists that work specifically with Black and brown folks on there as well. There are a few other like directories and things of that nature. Melanin and Mental Health. Trying to think of the other one. Therapy Den. So there are different therapist directories. So in addition to the insurance companies, you have the therapist directories, and then word of mouth. So if you know someone that is in therapy, you can always say, hey, is your therapist accepting new clients, or do they have other therapists at the practice, to just kind of find other therapists. So right. Those are kind of some of the easier ways to find a therapist.
And psychology, yes, psychology today is an awesome tool. If the insurance company, matter of fact, some people don't even have insurance. So if you don't have insurance, hey, the tool is right in front of you, which is called, your smartphone. All you have to do is Google therapist in zip code 454 blank blank. And then you can, they'll run a list of therapists, on your computer. You can make a selection. But like you said, Ms. Thompson, that especially psychology today, you can do your own homework. You can actually just go to Psychology Today, put in your zip code, and they'll have pictures of the therapist. They will have their credentials and types of insurance or cash payments if they're accepting cash payments. So there's a variety of ways you can actually find a therapist of your liking.
And if you all could once again talk a little bit about some of those who may not have insurance, how they can go about possibly finding a therapist, because as you all know, a lot of people are losing their jobs, and with that loss of job comes that loss of insurance, and they're in need of mental health therapy the most, because now they're dealing with bills, they're dealing with their children, they're dealing with so many different life factors. Can you all talk about how a person might be able to get mental health therapy without once
Sure.
A lot of
they
those.
find once they find a therapist.
We'll go with ladies first, and then you, Dr. Hunter.
Sorry.
No
A
problem.
lot of those platforms that Deasia mentioned earlier will also mention on there if that provider is private pay or if they accept insurance. So it's almost like a one-stop shop on those places for people with insurance or without. And one of the ones that I also knew about that Ms. Deasia didn't mention was Therapy for Black Men. Is also another resource for especially our African American men to find a therapist who relates to them.
And then for
You
folks
go
that
ahead.
are underinsured or uninsured, so obviously if you need to apply for benefits, so people, to see if they can get Medicaid benefits, a lot of therapists do take Medicaid for their services. So, those plans do cover behavioral health. But then you also have Open Path Collective, which is openpathcollective.org, which is a nonprofit organization that you pay a one-time fee, and then from there they'll give you access to a list of therapists that accept sliding fee scales, and so you can get a session between $30 and $60 per session, and that's for, I guess, you'll work that out with your therapist, but until you're able to afford higher therapy payments. In addition to that, there's the Loveland Foundation, which is it's a nonprofit organization. They have a therapy fund, which helps Black and Brown girls get therapy for free to them. And so if you sign up for the therapy fund, people have donated tons of money to pay for sessions. And so when you sign up, they assign you voucher numbers, and you can take that to your therapist. As long as they accept the vouchers, they will pay for like 4 or 5 therapy sessions. I'm trying to think. Taraji P. Henson also has the Boris L. Henson Foundation. And at a point in time, I'm not sure if they are still doing kind of a similar setup where there's that therapy fund, but I know at one point in time, like when the pandemic first hit, they were helping folks get connected to therapists where it would be no cost to them. And then they be able to, and then I guess they pay the therapist. I'm not sure if that one is still very active, but you can always look on the Boris L. Henson.org, the Boris L. Henson Foundation webpage, and see about that. A lot of therapists also take EAP plans. So that's the employee assistance plans. And so what that means is that, you can get between the lowest that I've seen is like 3 sessions. And the highest I've seen is like 20 or 30, depending on your EAP provider. But that EAP provider basically pays for a certain number of sessions. And as long as your as long as your therapist accepts that, you wouldn't have any costs up front. And then if you continue after your allotted sessions end, then it will switch over to insurance or whatever kind of payment plan that you work out with your therapist. But I think, if cost is an issue, the easiest way to know is to talk to the therapist about that. Many therapists will do pro bono work. Many therapists will take slide-in fees or like a low a low fee. You just have to talk to them about it and let them know what you have going on, and just being open and honest about that. And many do payment plans as well. So, because we know a lot of people have high deductible plans, and it is, it can get costly. So,
Right.
but just be open and honest. And it's a difficult conversation to talk about money, but you definitely want to have that conversation up front with your therapist. So.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Excellent. And Dr. Hunter?
Oh my God, she said it. She said it all. Every matter of fact, that everything ranging from the EAP to sliding scales to and let's not one thing. Let's not forget about our faith-based community as well. Our pastors, our churches. Uh, you can get some form of counseling there as well. Yes, we kind of went to school and got specialized degrees, but let's not overlook our churches and our pastors and our faith-based community. But what Ms. Thompson basically said covered it all.
Mm-hmm. And so, Dr. Hunter, I just wanted to ask you before we close out, as you were talking about this disparity of male mental health therapists, what could you say to encourage Black men to get into, becoming therapists or counselors or mentors even?
Thank you for that question. And one of the things to really find out if this is a field for you is by way of volunteering. And again, that led my path right there. When I went to Montgomery County Juvenile Court, I basically asked them, "Hey, do you need some help?" And then again, they put me in a program called a CASA program, CASA, which is working with abused and neglected children in our community. And for years I just volunteered, and that gave me an understanding of what to expect. I was able to talk to children and try to lead them in the right direction. And then that's where I knew that was a passion of mine. You don't necessarily have to go to Big Brothers or Big Sisters or Montgomery County Juvenile Court. Mentoring can begin with coaching, and it's a form of counseling. So if this is something that is passionate, that you are really passionate about, of changing lives and making a difference in our community, I will say, from start to finish, you can start over at Sinclair or community college and get some, take some small classes that route, and you can, and sky's the limit. I finished my degree at Wilberforce University. So again, I kept it to the point where I kept it black and brown,
Right.
But just if all the men out there who are listening right now, if you have a passion of making a difference to a young person, and I'm following the question because you said man, otherwise, but if these gentlemen have a passion of giving back, it's a phenomenal field, phenomenal. And Mr. Muhammad, again, I'm spiritually driven, so I knew this was my calling anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the most rewarding thing that I've ever experienced in my life, helping children and helping other people.
So as we just have two more questions as we close out, and I think you touched on children, right? I want to get from each of you, because we see once again this high rate of suicide among our young people, and one of the causes of that is bullying, not just in school, but actually online as well. What can you all say to that side of it, where our young people, just speaking to young people who might be going through these situations, what can they do to seek help? And if you want to start, we'll go with you first, Dr. Hunter.
Yes, absolutely. I will say, if a child is being bullied, so first and foremost, talk to your mom, talk to your dad, talk to someone about that's the first thing that's the first order of defense is talking it out and getting the protection that's needed if warranted. Okay, but more importantly, it boils down to, again, self-esteem as well. Um, there are, there are a lot of inappropriate individuals out there, and truly, I will say to the victim, dear, it's really not you. It's not you're the problem. It's the bullier is the problem. So don't take it and own it, And I will instill that that empowerment in the individual, that it's not you. So, but more importantly, we must protect that person as well who's been bullied. So our schools must step up. I think our schools are doing a phenomenal job across the board with bullying. Social media needs to do a better job in monitoring what's being said over, our platform. But we all have to take an active role, not only as parents, not only as providers, but when I say an active role, there's an active role for a parent to play for the person who is bullying that particular parent as well. They too must step up.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Sister DeAsia.
Yeah, I definitely think that in the instance of bullying and kind of relating it to a lot of what our topic is today related to MLK and his struggle with depression. Obviously, these things can weigh on folks. If you think about the level of harassment,
Mm-hmm.
death threats, and his family being in danger. So it's no surprise to me that there was, the struggle with depression, especially when you're talking about facing this overarching system of oppression and
Right.
really trying to fight for freedom for your people. So that definitely does not surprise me that he struggled with depression. But when we're looking at today and how our kids, specifically our kids, because I don't think that the bullying stops online for just kids. We do
Right.
talk about bullying in the sense of like in school and things of that nature. So it is a community effort when it comes to making sure that these kids are understanding, they understand what is bullying, why they should not bully, that they can talk to their parents, that they should be speaking out and talking to the teachers or whoever leadership is at school to make these things known. The initial reaction would be to hide it and just try to handle it themselves, but you have other people there to help you. So you have your parents, you have your teachers, the principal, your coach, whoever it is that you trust, your therapist, whoever it is that you trust in your circle, to really advocate for you and to help you through that process, because it doesn't feel good. On the flip side of that, when it comes to adults, we definitely need to also recognize how vast social media is in our lives, but then also in the lives of our children. And so it's our responsibility to monitor and make policies and regulations around what our kids have access to and how much access they have. It's also important for us. I know things have changed a lot since I was in school, and even since my oldest was in kindergarten, things
Right.
have changed a lot where, we can't go into the school unannounced. Whereas when I was in school, my mom could pop up at the school if I told her, "Hey, mom, this kid is bothering me." My mom will pop up to the school and walk the hallways with me and go to class with me and kind of just be a presence. Like, I'm in my kid's life. So
Right.
you can try to, bother my kid if you want to. And on the flip side of that, she's also having other conversations with the teachers, and she had conversations with the teachers. She had conversations with the principals to let them know, like, hey, you're going to see my face, because I want to make sure that my kid is coming to school and they're safe and happy and healthy. And if this is an issue that, continues on, we're going to have some different discussions. Right. So, it was definitely known that my mom was, a force to be reckoned with, but also, she was present. And, there was no question, like, if somebody decided that they were going to try something with me, that my mom was going to know about it. Right.
Right.
So that is also really important, in making sure that our kids know that we have their back. So if, there happens to be a chance, a time where your child is feeling like someone is bothering them, you know, that's our time to step in as parents, and, you know, make sure that we're going through the proper channels to alert whoever at the school and trying to handle it as best we can.
And
Go ahead.
Yeah, jump in.
no, and I was going to say also, if the child does not actually inform the parents or inform whomever that they are being bullied, look for parents, look for those signs, look for those signals that something's going on. Poor impulse control, lack of sleep, isolation,
Anxiety around even going to
anxiety.
school.
Yeah. So these are alarming signs. Whereas again, once again, if you can notice, my platform is parents. You know, let's play an active role in our child's life. Let's not just continue to go to work 9 to 5, come home, feed your child, and send them off, and that's it. We have to play a little bit more active role in what our child is going through. And I think that'll be a great asset to just kind of monitor what's going on and then be a little bit more active on why they're showing these signs and symptoms.
Thank you. And so the closing out, if you all could give us your contact information and, you know, any parting, you know, words on this MLK Day. We know that Martin Luther King was a very powerful man in so many different ways. And his struggle for freedom, justice, and equality, particularly among the poor, really needs to be highlighted more than the former with the "I have a dream," because I think that is really, you know, what caused our dear brother's assassination. So if you all could talk about yourself, give your contact information and any parting words on this topic. And we'll start with you, Sister Deasia.
Sure, thank you. So what I will say is just in recognizing, like in looking at the type of person that MLK was and the work that he did, you know, I think it shows us that, you know, you can, you know, as put together as you can be, you can still struggle with depression, you can still struggle with anxiety, and that's okay. There are people here to help you with that, and it's not something that you have to deal with alone. And so whatever your cause is that you're championing, whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's finishing school or, you know, whatever, you know, issues at work, issues at home, there are people here that are trained to support you and to really work with you and help you work through those issues. And so you just don't have to do that alone, is what I would say. And now as far as my office, so my office is Rise Counseling Group. And once again, we are located in Dayton, Ohio. RiseCounselingGroup.com is our website. At Rise Counseling Dayton is our Instagram page and Facebook page. And you can find us on any of those platforms. And if you give our office a call, if you go to the website, give our office a call, all of our contact information is on there. You can email the office. You can find us on Psychology Today. You can find us on Psychology Today and Therapy for Black Girls. So all of our contact information are, you know, it's blasted across all of those platforms. So give us a call or email us or fill out a appointment request form, and we will get back to you. And we look forward to serving you.
Excellent. And Dr. Hunter?
And of course, you can find me on Psychology Today. Actually, you can really just put in your zip code around Montgomery County area, and I should populate. But even more important, I think everyone needs help. Everyone needs a platform or something to possibly bounce off of another individual and get advice. And mentoring is cool. You know, mentoring is cool. Talking it out and purging it out, it's okay. We don't have to maintain that stigma how it was many years ago. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to talk to someone. It's you won't be frowned upon or anything like that, because the help is out there. And if you need to if you need to talk, if you need a black male They're out there. They're out there, and you can find them. If you need a Black woman, they're out there. So the help is out there. And I'm just kind of, reaching out to everyone. Accept it. Accept that help. We can't do it by ourselves. Even myself, and I'm sure all of us on this panel, we all needed a mentor here and there to kind of guide us, and tell us the right from wrong. And so don't be afraid to reach out. It's available, and even more importantly, stay in prayer and keep God first. That's my strongest advice right there.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for coming on. Unfortunately, I think our sister Ashley's internet connection dropped, but we definitely want to put her as well as you all's information, contact information. We're going to add that to the description in this program. So thank you once again for coming on. And I'm just going to close out with a few parting words, and I hope to be in contact with each of you here for some more projects that I would love for you all to be a part of. So yes,
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
And thank you.
All right. And thank you. And so, brothers and sisters, I want to thank all of you for tuning in to Knowledge for Life. This was an impromptu, basically asking them a couple of days ago to join this conference where we talked about mental health, particularly where it deals with Martin Luther King and his struggles of this severe depression and suicidal thoughts at a young age. So as a people, one of the things that we can definitely begin to do to secure a strong mental health foundation is to begin to once again embrace our knowledge of ourselves, our own culture. As we are always taught, we were robbed of our name, our language, our religion, and our culture. Basically robbed of the knowledge of self. And being robbed of that knowledge of self causes mental imbalance. The actual being robbed of a knowledge of self causes a mental imbalance. For instance, if we talk about our culture, a culture is a way of conduct, is a way that we relate to each other. It's a way of solving problems. So as Dr. Hunter was saying, when we look at the music, which is controlled, basically the music that is played on our radio stations is controlled by external forces. Those external forces, of course, are playing music that has us in a self-destructive modality. So what we have to do as a people is we have to come together. We have to unite, come together, pull our resources, and do something for self. We need to erect our own educational system where we're not depending on our open enemy to educate our children on the knowledge of themselves. We need our own hospitals. We need our own grocery stores. We need all of this across the board. And we have the individuals, we have the professionals in our communities who can do these things. We have the money. We have $1 trillion that flows through our community each year. But that dollar doesn't stay in our community a day. And the reason why this is that we have been programmed, brothers and sisters, to be at variance to each other, to see each other as an enemy, and to have self-hatred for each other. So if we want to begin to get any type of mental balance once again, we have to truly see each other as the Muslims approach each other with brother and sister. We have to see each other as brothers and sisters, a brother or a sister from another mother, but the same father, if you understand what I'm saying. So with that, I would like to invite you all to our regularly scheduled Knowledge Cipher Conference, which will be held this coming Wednesday at 7 p.m. on this same channel. And so we invite you. We're going to be talking about PTSD. We're also going to be talking a little bit more about Martin Luther King and his bout with depression and anxiety. And we'll be closing it out with some information that can help you on your journey to getting some mental health therapy and balance. I want to thank you again. My name is Steve Muhammad. You're tuned in to Knowledge for Life. Black Mental Health Matters. May God continue to bless you and your family as I greet you in peace.
All black people are mentally ill, and all white people in the system of white supremacy are mentally ill. You don't have any people who are not mentally ill in a system that is a mentally ill system. The system of racism, when you have a world government based on mistreating people based on color, you have mentally ill people. So we're all mentally ill. Now, the white supremacists are the supreme people in this mentally ill system. They are the prison wardens running a prison full of mentally ill people, and the people who are running the prison are also mentally ill because they are mistreating, dominating and mistreating people based on color. That's a mentally ill proposition right from the beginning. So everybody is mentally ill. So, but who are to blame? Who are the people to blame for this situation? The white supremacists, of course. Every last one of them, because they're the ones who set it up, this mentally ill system. So therefore, if anybody is being mistreated in the system, because the system is designed to mistreat the people who have been made mentally ill from birth, then the people who are running the institution, the mentally ill institution, are to blame for this mentally ill situation that we have going all over the planet. This is why the system has to be completely eliminated, and a sane system replacing it called justice. Justice is better than racism as a world system. That's the theory anyway. Justice has never been tried seriously, but it needs to be tried seriously for the first time in the history of the known universe.